Hello, and welcome to the 4th annual meeting of the Top Shelf Society. I'm Kristen from Perks of the Book Flower, and today we are so excited to be chatting with all of you about our August book club pick, which was The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So we have quite a few things we're going to be talking with you about today. We're going to be talking about fictional cats and magical abilities and all of that. But to get started, we kind of just want to do some introductions. So like I said, I'm Kristen. My YouTube channel is Perks of Book Flower, where I do all sorts of random bookish vlogs and all of that. So that's me. Hi.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I read with my cat. That's pretty much it.
Hey, I'm Stephanie, and I have a booktube channel, Stephanie's Book Verse, and I read a lot of fantasy.
Hi, I'm Angela, and my booktube channel is Angela Rose Reads, and I read a lot of random things.
I'm Laura. My channel is Laura Reads Pages. You should come find me there. And just like Angela, I read a little bit of everything.
And hi, my name is Yesenia. My channel name is just my first name, and I read a little bit of everything as well.
Nice. And this is us, the Top Shelf Society. I think that they are the best, awesomest people on this planet. And we actually really have our act together this month because we already have the date for our next live show and the book we're going to be reading. So I'll go ahead and share that with you now. You guys voted and decided that you wanted us to read Fahrenheit 451. So that is our September winner. It came in second place, actually, behind House in the Cerulean Sea. And that is going to be on Saturday, September 26th at 8 p.m. EST. So that's 3 hours later than we have been doing. And we have some lovely people in the chat that we just have to say hello to. My friend Robbie, thank you.
We all adore you.
That's so sweet. And then we have Elise. Hi, Elise. Okay, so I guess I covered everything. I think we're ready to get started. Normally we do like a little synopsis of the book in case that you don't know, and also like complete spoiler warning. Okay, we just go right into all the spoilers. But basically, The House in the Cerulean Sea is an adult fantasy. How'd you guys feel about the fact that it was an adult fantasy?
Before we were talking about like what made it an adult fantasy, I think minus a few, like Yesenia said, sexual innuendos, like if those few things were taken out, it could have very well been like appropriate for children, or it could have been for anyone. So yeah.
That's fun. I was just looking on his website actually to see if he had like book club discussion questions, which he didn't, by the way. It's fine. But he says I know. He said that the book was appropriate for all ages. Like anyone could read it. And I mean, that's kind of true. There's like 3 cuss words, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to fact check myself because I think it's because of the cover. I actually thought it was middle grade.
Me
it
too.
kind of looked like middle grade.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a second. Is it? Because it's big. And then yeah.
And a lot of people who read middle grade, for some reason, like in the booktube world, were reading this book and talking about it too. And it really does read like middle grade. But okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So the synopsis of this story is basically we have our main character, this underdog, kind of quirky Linus Baker, and he works for this magical, kind of like magical control group. They work to keep magical people kind of hidden and like restrained, and he works there and he's very set on rules and regulations. And then one day he has given a assignment to go to this house on the Cerulean Sea, and he meets these magical children and the owner of the magical like house, who kind of is the caretaker of everyone, and kind of basically falls in love with all of them. And they change his life. So it's very heartwarming. And so before we jump into what we're going to say next, I want to just kind of say hello to a few more people. Hi, Alicia. And we have Bridget Books. Hi, you were here last time. Thanks for showing up again. And then she says, yeah, I thought it was middle grade until just now. Right?
My thoughts exactly. Like,
Yeah, so I went into it too. I had seen the cover, but I hadn't heard anything besides everyone giving it high ratings, and I purposefully didn't want to read the synopsis, so it definitely, I know we'll talk about it in a little bit, but just the fact that our narrator was a 40-year-old man is really interesting too.
And hello, Watermelonies. We are so glad that you're here. And that's an adorable name. Okay, well, then we're going to get on with our very first discussion point, which is unconventional underdog protagonists. Because I would say that Linus Baker, our protagonist, is definitely that. Like, guys, what are some ways that he's kind of like unconventional, quirky, underdog, all of that?
He was kind of stuck in a rut a little bit in the beginning, right? Like he was kind of in his own day-to-day life. There's nothing new and exciting for him. So that was one way that he stuck out to me as a character, because usually when you hop into, especially a fantasy novel, you hop in immediately to the action and it's fun and whimsical from the beginning, but we kind of got a little bit of a mundane kind of vibe from him in the beginning.
Exactly.
mm-hmm. He's
And
also
felt different.
not a risk taker, and I find that a lot of the times, like with the main characters, like there will be some wanting to like partake in certain risks, but not as like Linus was so sort of like confined in his own little world. He bought the rules and regulations. Like he kept it at home. Like who does that?
No.
And so I just kept thinking to myself, like, you need to break the rules. You need to break the rules. Like, and just step outside of your, like, comforting, like, little box. And I kept rooting for him because I was like, I want to see Linus defy gravity, defy all the rules. And also, whenever I thought of Linus from Charlie Brown.
Linus and Lucy.
I actually felt
Lucy.
different than that. I don't know. I thought, okay, wow, I must be an unpopular opinion. I actually thought he was quite like, I don't know, maybe because I relate to him. I like to follow the rules and I don't like to I like to follow the rules, but I just don't like confrontation and getting into trouble and things like that and like sassing people and things like that. And I thought he was actually quite self-possessed. Like even when he first met people, he would sass them back if they were given trouble. And he's like, I don't let anyone speak for me. And he kept like holding his own against everyone. And so for me, I actually kind of thought he kept surprising me for somebody who does like to follow the rules and be orderly. I didn't like think that was his whole character. I just thought that what he was comfortable with, but he just kept surprising me with like how much he stood up for himself.
I do think that we see him learn that sometimes like rules should not always be followed.
Yeah.
Like definitely when he starts at the end and he sneaks the files to maybe help like the next children. Which, by the way, I feel like there could be like a second book from like the way that they ended the first book. Do you guys feel that way?
I think there is on Goodreads. I think it said this is book number 1.
Oh, good.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I want to hear more about the Yeti.
Yeah. On top of like him being a rule follower at the start, he's also just kind of sad. Like he doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have any family. All that he has is his work, and no one notices all the work he's doing. So,
and I just think that the biggest thing that like shows Linus to me is the like picture by his desk or the mouse pad or whatever it is that says like "Wish you were here" and has the beach. Like I just feel like that rut Linus has gotten into, that kind of represents how so much is lacking from his life, I guess at the time.
So I warned you I had a bad memory. I was wrong. It just says the house in the Cerulean Sea. Sorry.
I just looked at that too.
It's
Never mind. My bad.
It's definitely set up though. You're right, for there to be a second book because they
there has to
right
be
at the end.
Yeah. Why else would they put a Yeti right at the end? And also, there's still all those files with more magical children that they could get. So that's what I think. Okay, so one thing I was thinking about is how I feel like in a lot of young adult fantasy, and I haven't read a lot of it, so I could be wrong, but I feel like in a lot of young adult and adult fantasy, we have like main characters who are really like adventurous, like really kind of bold and out there. And I do feel like since this book is marketed as adult fiction, that like Linus is like unconventional for the genre. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of fantasy. And yeah, I would agree. I think that he is kind of a unique protagonist. And when they do have those kind of unconventional, less like bold and powerful people, they tend to become that way. And they're like, oh, I'm not like other girls, you know? And you're like,
right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I like how he ended up.
He kind of made me think of Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then he like gets a little bit older. I don't know. I saw that. Okay, so I thought that Linus was kind of like a breath of fresh air, I guess, with the main character. And it just got me thinking, like, why are characters like Linus a breath of fresh air? Like, why are they normally so different and surprising and refreshing?
I think what made the characters enjoyable in this book is that everyone was so whimsical. Like, that's the word that I would use to describe the book. It's just whimsical. And so I think, like, we like characters like Linus because they remind us of, like, how we would act if we were thrown into a situation with all these whimsical characters. And I guess they're relatable and they're also just comedic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely agree with that. I think it made him way more relatable. Just because in fantasy, a lot of the time you get a lot of shock value. And for this, it's easy to picture yourself in that situation, as Laura said. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
Okay, and do any of you guys kind of like see yourself in Linus? Like pieces of yourself? Yeah. I know, Angela, you said that you're like a rule follower.
Well, I don't always agree with rules, so I'm not just like a rule follower for the sake of it, but I can see, because you know how he believes that the rules are for the children's good at the beginning anyway. And so like, if I believe that the rule is for good, I will follow it. But if I don't, then I won't. But I can see, like, you know, you get stuck in your ways and your comfort of your house and you're like, this is my safe place and things like that. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah, I do. Sorry, I didn't know. I feel like I talk over people too much. But I was going to say, yeah, I see so much of myself in Linus too. I think that like unwillingness to step out of your comfort zone is like something that a lot of people feel. And it makes me just wonder, like, I don't know, why don't we change when we get so stuck in our routines, right? Like Linus had worked at that job for such a long time. Is it because he just didn't believe there were any alternatives to the life that he was living? Like, I don't know. I just wonder, because there have been times in my life where I felt like I was stuck in routines and needed a change. And like, does that come from within, or is it outer circumstances that have to change you? I don't know. That's like a really deep question, but does anyone have an answer?
Yeah, that's definitely kind of the root of what happened to Linus, and he's a homebody, which I can relate to. He likes to be at home with his cat, and he likes his comforts and his routines, like Bilbo Baggins, like you said. But at the start of the book, they don't really describe him as being particularly unhappy, which is interesting. So I think I think he was just stuck in his routines and you know, comfortable. And so he didn't realize that he needed a change until he was put in a situation and he saw, look, like life could be so much better.
Didn't Helen talk about that? Our safety comfort bubbles, and then they have to get popped sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then one question we were wondering about is because Linus is such a rule follower, right? Like he just has to stick to the rules. Why is it fun to read about rule followers like Linus?
For me, it was fun because I kept waiting for him to break the rules.
Yeah.
He was just so like adherent to his rule book, and I kept just thinking to myself, okay, so what if these events happen? What if something changes? Like rules are, I mean, guidelines, but at some point, you know, they have to be broken. And I think for him, the what caused him to break his rules and defy them was his moral and ethical understanding of the world, when his guidebook of rules and regulation was in complete like juxtaposition with the reality that he was like facing, and what the moral and ethical consequences of adhering to the rules despite that would be.
Yeah, I think you've hit on it, the like waiting for the minute where he'll be confronted with an ethical dilemma and knowing that that's coming. And I mean, I guess the other famous example of a rule follower is Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. And what makes her interesting are the moments where she decides not to follow the rules, and sort of the moral and ethical reasoning that makes it so that she can't follow the rules in certain instances. I was actually a little bit disappointed on that front. I thought there was going to be, like, coming into the book, I thought there was going to be like a stronger moment of like realization, oh, like these rules don't make sense, or I don't know. It was more of a gradual kind of disenchantment with the rules. I was expecting like a big climax. I mean, I guess there was to a certain extent, but yeah.
I was expecting, as far as how they kept asking him, do you ever check on these kids later and see what actually happens to them and if it was for their greater good? I kept expecting that to happen as well, like where it's like he looks and he sees that these rules aren't actually for the benefit of the kids and maybe it didn't all work out all the way. Yeah, that was one thing too. I was like, oh, I thought it was going to go there.
Yeah, I actually found that pretty interesting because he kept saying, when they were asking him, well, what happened to the kids after you assessed them or whatever, and he said, oh, that's not part of my job description. These are the parameters of what I do, and then it's up to someone else. And I think that's so true about so many people's workplaces. I know, like when I started, I was so idealistic. And people kept saying, why are you worrying about that? That's way above your pay grade. Like that's, so I don't know. That was really relatable for me. And I think, I think there's, even though at the end of the book, he decides that he doesn't want to stay within the parameters of his work. I actually think that's something that we all have to come to terms with. A lot of people in their jobs, is that you can only do what's in the parameters of your work, and you have to leave some things up to other people, whether they're doing it well or not. So,
yeah, I might be reaching a little bit here, but I thought there were so many great lessons in this book. I feel like every other page, it kind of hits you hard, like one of the lessons. But I know one of the main takeaways from it was how, yes, you're only one person, but you can make a big difference, but it's going to happen gradually. So maybe that's part of the reason why we didn't have this big, like, aha action moment, but it was slowly over time. You could see him change his mind, Linus, I mean, and then that in turn, he changes all of these other people's minds, like a little ripple, but that causes a wave. I don't know if that makes any sense. It made a lot more sense in my head, but maybe it didn't make sense.
It does make sense. And I was so curious about that because they didn't talk at all about why that like extremely upper management like ended up deciding to keep the kids in the home. Like, I guess it was just supposed to be like assumed that, you know, what Linus said was so powerful that it changed their minds, or made them help them come to that decision. But I feel like there wasn't enough like backstory into why they were considering, like, I don't know, shutting it down anyways. Was I missing something there, or?
There was something to do with I don't know if they were hinting that there was, they seem to be hinting that there was some backstory with Arthur Parnassus and one of the upper management, like what's his name, Linus's predecessor, who had gone on to become, also just, it was hilarious that they were called extremely upper management. That was one of the worst parts of the book. It was so funny. But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed in that too. Maybe they are going to go there in the next book, but they didn't really flesh out like what was the nature of their relationship. And I thought maybe that could have had something to do with the upper management's decision to keep the school on, is whatever Arthur's relationship was with this guy and upper management. I don't know if I missed something as well, because I very well could have been. There could have been another detail about that. But I actually found that like Linus's, I don't know, I found there wasn't much resistance from him to sticking to his old ways. Like it seemed once he was there in front of the kids, it was just clear to him, like, I have to give whatever I can to these kids. Like there didn't seem, he talked in his head a lot about, you know, keeping his professional distance. But yeah, I didn't feel like he resisted that strongly before he changed his mind.
I know, they were just too cute for him. He was just like, oh, never mind, all my walls are down.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that kind of goes a lot into unconventional underdog characters. So next, let's talk about the lovely Calliope. Am I saying that right? Calliope?
Calliope.
Oh, Calliope. Right.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah,
Okay, the
I
cat.
Calliope. What? Oh my god.
Sorry.
I knew this was going to come up. The pronunciation of Calliope.
Yeah, that's my bad. Oh gosh.
No, I just knew it because I first started reading the ebook and I was like, Calliope? Like, how do I say this word? And I remember, like, Hermione, I first called her Hermione and in my head, and it made sense. But the audiobook sort of pronounces Calliope's name as Calliope, and my mind was like,
Yeah, but Sarah, I listened to the audiobook and I still say it wrong. Why?
But Calliope is an
I had to
organ.
train myself.
Ugh.
Emphasis
Well, then
on
what?
the I, Calliope. I had to practice before this call too.
I practiced too.
Okay,
There's a
Calliope.
Calliope on Main Street in Disneyland. I'm
Wait,
freaking
Angela,
out.
say it.
I thought that you said something about this was like a Greek person.
The Greek muse, yeah.
Oh, well then that's because a calliope, do you know what like a real calliope is? It's like an instrument. It's like an organ type thing. Like they have one in one of the shops on Disneyland. It's like a musical instrument. So I guess that makes sense why a guy who loves music would name his cat after like a keyboard organ type situation.
Aww.
That is blowing my mind. I didn't even think about that. If that makes
Yes, so Calliope shows up a lot in the book, kind of just at like random moments. Yeah, Elise, 100%. Obviously, I did not do that right. Just one thing about it. Do all of us listen to the audiobook?
Yeah, I did.
No.
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Okay, so just Angela.
Hey,
Angela,
I got
if
the
you
highlight though, okay? Haha.
did you highlight a lot?
Yeah. And I made sure I used my cerulean highlighter because, you know,
Oh,
gotta represent.
nice.
You get like bonus points.
I know, that's so good. Speaking of pronunciation, my friend Leanne from Scrap Paper Scribbler, she's not here right now, but she could not say cerulean. So we were talking, and every time she's like, I don't think she had heard of the word cerulean before. So yeah, that was kind of fun thing. I don't know. Okay, anyways, fictional cats. So does anyone have a favorite fictional cat?
I have like 20.
Yeah, Sarah, tell us about yours.
Okay, so probably my like favorite fictional cat, and Olivia's not here, so I'm okay to say it, is Salem from Sabrina. I love Salem so much. And also Luna from Sailor Moon. I love them. I love them both so much. And I guess they're both like more like graphic novel sort of characters. Also from Nevermore, oh, I forget the cat's name.
Fenestra, that's what I was gonna say.
Fenestra, like window, right? Like
She's
Fenestra.
amazing. I love Fenestra.
Oh, I love her.
I still have not read that book.
Oh my gosh, that would be right up your alley, Kristen.
So good.
Really?
You will love it.
Yes.
There's umbrellas.
Yeah, it's my favorite middle grade probably of all time.
I need to.
And the sequel too. And the third one is coming out, except it's about a pandemic. So she wrote it before this happened.
Oh.
And so like it got pushed back. It's called Hollowpox. And it's like about this magical illness. We're not talking about that. Sorry. Anyway. Yeah, so it just got pushed back because she was like, how did I write this? And then the world happened. And then, yeah. So it's a good one. It's a good series.
I need to. Okay, so I was thinking about this, and like I only know of one fictional cat, which is Hermione's cat, Crookshanks.
Same series.
But Crookshanks is like super important, right? Like he does so much, and was it Prisoner of Azkaban? I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, love old Crookshanks.
Is his name Silas, the cat in Sorcery of Thorns?
Yes.
I
You
love.
consider him a cat? Ooh, interesting. That's a great. That's a great one.
I love him.
Silas was great.
He's my character in the whole book. So.
Okay. So now let's talk about magical abilities. I think that's really kind of the heart of this story. So like, let's think about all of the children, right? So we have Talia, who is a gnome, right? She has a green thumb. And then we have Theodore, who is, okay, what did they call him? Yeah. What is that?
Wyvern.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a dragon.
Yeah, it's good.
But like,
I had to look it up to see what it was, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. But yeah, it's like a dragon.
It's not like it is a thing. They are a thing, though. I've read about them before.
Yeah,
But,
same.
I can't tell you much
I've
either.
seen the term before.
So is that why he keeps taking the buttons? They're like his treasure, and he takes them to like his nest?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's like a little dragon, but it doesn't have like front hands. It's just like the back, and it's a little dragon. Yeah.
Oh, cute. Okay, so we have them, and then we have Sal, who is like, he turns into a dog, right?
That was a Pomeranian.
Pomeranian.
And if he bites someone, they also become a Pomeranian. So I just like picture a room full of Pomeranians. Yeah.
It's like a werewolf, but like a Pomeranian werewolf.
I love it.
Aw.
Hilarious image.
And poor Sal, right? Like, he like broke my heart more than almost any of the other kids.
I love him.
Me too.
So cute.
Who else am I missing? What other kids did I not say? Oh,
Chelsea.
Lucy.
Lucy, yeah.
The Antichrist is what they basically call him, the son of the devil. And he is so sweet too.
And hilarious. I thought he was hilarious like the whole time.
Yeah. So did you guys have a favorite like a favorite kid?
Sal.
Chauncey.
Chauncey! Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to be a bellhop, and so he liked doing
Yes.
people's laundries and carrying their suitcases. Yeah.
Yes. Sarah, did you have a favorite?
Yes, I did. Lucy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I really
Angela?
love Lucy.
I love Lucy.
I was about to say.
I'm on the Lucy train as well. But
I just loved how Lucy would just like burst out into these like highly inappropriate, just like, I want the world to burn, and I love Lucy so much. I was like, can we just like be here like more often? And then they were just
Lucy.
like, well, we don't pay attention to it. And I'm like, yep, Lucy's a sweetheart, actually.
But Talia had her moment at the end of the book where she's like, I'm taking your grave and I'm going to bury you in it.
That was hilarious.
Oh gosh, that part was one of the parts that made me really emotional though. Like she was trying to be so like strong, you know, whenever Linus came back and she was just like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, but Chauncey is my favorite, I think. And if anyone's watching this and they don't know, Chauncey is one of the children who stays at like a home, and he's like not like no one really knows what he is, like what they don't know what type of magical creature he is or what type of abilities he has or anything, but they have told him his whole life that he's a monster. And so because of that, he thinks, you know, I'm a monster, I have to like live under the bed. And so he'll like hide under people's beds to scare them, even though he doesn't want to. It's because he's been told his whole life that that's what he is. And but really what Chauncey wants to be is just a bellhop. Like that's just his like little simple dream. And he's like, Linus, can I fold your laundry? And
So cute.
I know.
So cute.
And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like any story with children like always makes me feel more emotional.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost cried when he got an actual bellhop hat. I was like, oh God. Oh no.
Yeah.
Because there's like a whole innocence
I actually
level.
thought. Well, I actually thought I was so surprised that this is not marketed as a children's book, because there's so many like really direct, like heavy-handed, like sometimes in the world people are, I don't know, like pieces of wisdom that seems like something that like is more present in children's book, or is like more directed at a child reader. Like it seemed like a very more realistic kind of like learning our lessons sort of story. So I was surprised that it wasn't I was surprised that it's marketed for adults. That's interesting.
Isn't there a quote? I'm sorry, Angela.
No, go.
Well, I think there's a quote from someone that says something like, you're never too old to start reading fairy tales again, or something like that. And it's just interesting because, like, I feel like maybe like I'm one of those people with kind of like a Peter Pan complex, and the fact that like everything from childhood still means so much to me, and like in a way like I want to like guard and protect that childish nature. And so I think that's why I gravitate towards like middle grade books so much, is that kind of level of purity and lessons from life. And I think it could be one of the reasons why this book is so special, because it's kind of like this refreshing, like wholesome tale that like realizes the fact that maybe adults need to still learn lessons too. You know,
I wonder if like there are a lot of people like you who enjoy reading children's book or YA or like middle grade or whatever, and I just wonder if this was like an attempt to, I don't know, give people permission to enjoy that sort of book, or to by calling it an adult book or marketing it as an adult book, when really, like, to me, there's not that much that separates it from like the author said, like it could be read by anyone. But it's just so interesting they chose to market it as an adult book, because I think that I've seen some things out there, some like kind of pointed remarks about, especially people who read YA or adults who read YA, and some like shaming around that. So I wonder if this was marketed as an adult book in order to, you know, reach a wider audience and to kind of give people permission to read children's stories.
I also had another take. I agree with that. I think that there's probably a lot of reasons, and I think that it can hit any age. But my take on partly why it might have benefited marketing as an adult book is because if you remember, like when they were going through the town and the little kids were totally okay and fine with seeing like Talia and them, and they weren't prejudiced against them. And yet it was a lot of the adults who had their like strong opinions and prejudices. And while this book is a lot about like found family and being comfortable in your own skin and not letting the world beat you down. I feel like on the flip side, if someone is reading the book who does have those negative feelings towards people who are quote unquote different than the norm, I feel like this book might also be directed at them. Like, because obviously this is a metaphor. I mean, it doesn't have to be. You could take it literally as they're just magical youth, but I feel like a lot of this is a metaphor, like X-Men is too, for people that society doesn't deem acceptable. And I feel like by marketing this also at adults, there's a chance that books can give you a different perspective. And maybe if there were adults who were feeling a lot of these ways towards people, hopefully it can maybe kind of like pop that bubble a tiny bit and maybe make them realize that people are all people and deserve to be loved and safe and accepted. Yeah.
Just to add to that, so I think that this is a book that adults ought to read. And I think that using, I think that the whole magical aspect of it is sort of like a blanket for all different forms of differences. Instead of just targeting like one specific, it's multiple different aspects of magical, like Antichrist, gnome, etc. So it can sort of be a universal concept, not just targeting one issue.
Yeah, I almost think that it would be kind of not detrimental in a way, but if this were just in the middle grade section or just in the YA section, I think that opening it up to the adult genre, it has the ability to reach more hands almost. So I think that's part of the reason why they maybe put it in adult too, just because there was a lot, like Angela said, you can take anything you want from it. You could look at it as just magical youth, but I thought there was tons of social commentary in this and issues that are relevant still today too. So maybe that's why I don't know.
Yeah, that phrase, see something, say something, right? Kind of like where the government has like institutionalized kind of hate, right? By making people who are different in whatever way seem like they're the enemy, right? Like they have to be looked out for and kind of targeted. That's definitely one area where you could get into like social commentary and like the role of the government and even like creating and supporting that level of hatred.
Yeah. For some reason, when I was trying to think of like the slogan that sort of made me think of, I think it was "Don't ask, don't tell." It sort of reminded me of just like a targeted sort of sentence in order to directly like target a group of individuals.
And maybe it's more powerful, I don't know, because it's these children who like going into like, I just think of Linus looking at their files and seeing Lucy's file, right? And being like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. This is like, what the heck? And then actually meeting Lucy and loving him so much and having so much in common with him, you know, like.
And maybe that can help people because like they say, like people tends to be anyway, naturally more loving and accepting of children. It's like they're innocent, they're children, and maybe that could also help them have a little more empathy and understanding too.
Yeah, because eventually children grow up, you know, but they're still human. They're still, but we can not hate children. Usually that's frowned upon. So.
Yeah.
So this book is good in a lot of ways. Angela, I know that you're training to be a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and Laura, you teach, right? Okay, and I teach too. So I don't think, Sarah, you don't teach. Stephanie, you don't teach, right?
Just grad students.
Okay, so I was thinking like for me, this book was so special because it was kind of like about nurturing a child and getting to see like all of these children's perspectives. Do you feel like maybe like Angela and Laura that you like enjoyed the book because of the children aspect and you're a teacher?
I thought it was a little unrealistic and I thought the kids were a little bit too easy. Like
Yeah.
Arthur Parnassus would just say something, and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's or you know they were a little too good. I was like, real kids, they're not like.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. That's cynical. Oh dear.
What age do you teach, Laura?
I've taught right now. Oh, I'm teaching all ages. I'm
Okay.
qualified to teach middle school and high school.
Yeah.
But right now I have like 4-year-olds up until 14-year-olds. So yeah.
Okay. So I'm certified 612, so middle school and high school, and I always thought I wanted to teach high school, just like be with seniors. And then my first job was in 6th grade. And like I've stayed there, and now I can't imagine leaving it, because I think that I am just so attracted to that kind of purity and curiosity that I see in my 6th graders, like with the fact that how they're still so little. And so I feel like I love this book so much because I love the mind of children and like the innocence of children. But yeah, I totally agree that they're not always that well behaved.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm also gravitating towards the younger ones as well, or that sort of like 10, 11 age. But it's kind of sad because I feel like the middle school kids still have that sort of like sense of wonder, but then they're just so inhibited because they start to become like self-conscious, and starts to become a lot of like social dynamics start to come into play, like in the classroom. And so it's something you see it come through in certain moments, but it's like they still have that sense of wonder and like a little bit quirky way of thinking that the younger kids do, but it's just more censored. So yeah.
A line that I really liked that relates to maybe, I mean, at least to me particularly in teaching, is when it says, change, he reminded himself, started with the voices of the few. Perhaps it would amount to nothing, but he wouldn't know unless he tried. And that's kind of how I feel, because I actually feel most comfortable with like actually the younger, like kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, like the really younger kids. And I think that teaching them empathy is like the core to getting them to help have what I would deem good morals, with treating everyone with respect and love and appreciation. And you know, you can do your best and you won't know if it actually impacted any kids. You won't know if it actually made a difference because you don't get to see them grow up, but at least you know you tried and you planted that seed that may or may not grow, but it might. So yeah. I like that.
Yeah, so I think that's why for me, this book was so special, because I feel like, you know, Arthur had that role for these children, right? Especially from the different situations they came from. And it was really nice to see Sal open up with Linus and grow and change too. And it just made me think about the role that a teacher can have to do something like that in a kid's life too. So, I mean, and anyone can change a kid's life, you know, not just teachers, like anyone can. And so, I don't know, I get all sad thinking about it, but yeah.
I do think though, like the book presented it as like, you know, there was one adult that cared, and it was Arthur, and that made all the difference for the kids, which I think is true in a lot of situations. Like it just takes one person who cares, but there's also a lot of situations where there are a lot of adults who do care, but it still doesn't make a difference, and it's still not easy. Like, I mean, it does make a difference, but not in the clear way that you see in the book. So, yeah.
I think that a barrier that can happen is what was presented, right? Like how the system is set up and who was able to actually act and what you're permitted to do. A lot of the times I find that people sort of do what they can as best as they can in adherence to them and sort of take the path of least resistance. Even though they are making quite a difference, it just might not be as dramatic, for instance.
Yeah. And to kind of go off of that a little bit, I think, sorry, I have going back to teachers. I have back to school brain. Okay, I'm so sorry. But to go off of that too, and we talked about this when we were talking about Black Girl Unlimited. A teacher can also have a really negative influence, and a neutral teacher who is neither like really, really loving or really, really hateful can also have a bad influence on a child. Like it's just funny how almost like sometimes our actions have these, I don't know, unintended consequences or none at all. And that's kind of more of a reality, I think, going off of what Laura said earlier. Like, because I feel like a lot of children can have this strong support system in their life and still not have that change. Like one person won't just bring about a change. Sometimes it's more complicated.
Yeah, or it's you can only, like, sometimes the kids are in front of you, but you don't have that information about like their backstory or about what they go through at home or about like all these other factors that influence their life, and you can only play your role. And maybe it doesn't seem like you're making a difference because there's X, Y, Z like going on in their life outside of school, but like you have to keep you have to keep playing your role. And yeah, so it's not always simple like it is in the story, it's not always simple. Like if you're a good person, and you care about the kids, you'll make a difference. Like it's hard, like harder than that, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you want to move on to something a little bit lighter? Okay, so thinking about the different magical abilities that like all of these characters had, I was like, man, I really want to know like what if everyone could pick a magical ability, like what would it be? So I'll go first, and then like I'd like to hear from you guys too. Okay, so if I was being selfish, my magical ability would be to fly. Because I don't know why, but I'm like obsessed with the wind. And so the idea of like being like surrounded by wind and being able to like be in the sky sounds so nice to me. But if someone was like, hey, pick a magical ability, and I could pick between flying or something else, I think I would actually pick like healing, like the power to heal things. Yeah. Because that like that one is not selfish, Okay, but what about you, Sarah?
Oh, mine was the ability to heal. Especially like, I mean, Stephanie, you understand, like working like in the medical field, and you can see how traumatic not just like physical ailments are. Like I'd also want the ability to heal like psychologically as well. It like there's such a difference that you can make with that ability, and that's definitely what I would want. But another one that I would like too is just the ability to find things. Like, where is my phone? Like ASIO.
Yes.
I would
my car keys.
Yeah, exactly. My passport.
Well, I didn't even think of the healing one, but that one would be cool, which I don't know why I didn't think of it because that's kind of what I do like all day. But I thought it'd be kind of cool to be able to stop time. Like I can stop time, but I can still do whatever I want while it's stopped and everyone else and time itself is frozen, and then I can like restart it. I thought that would be pretty cool. So that was mine.
Everyone else and time.
Angela.
I feel bad going after the healing one. Mine is really weird and oddly specific. I've always wished that if I could ever have a superpower. I know, now you're like, I want to heal people, and I'm like,
I know, that's how I felt too.
I have always wished more than anything that if I could have a superpower, I would be able to go back in history anywhere I wanted, but be invisible so that I could not affect or change anything. I just want to be able to see. Like, I want to go back and see like what happened at this spot, because I don't necessarily, because history is, it's written by the victors and it's changed and there's mysteries and we have no idea. So I want to be able to go and see it, but I can't change it or affect anything, and I don't live there. I just get to see.
Okay,
that is
I was going to ask you.
That's
I was going to
spoken
ask
like
you,
a true
like,
reader.
about the potential of the butterfly effect, but you're saying that you wouldn't want to be able to affect anything, right?
Nope. Even
Okay.
if I just look at it on a movie screen, I don't care. I just want to be able to see history for what actually happened in any place, anytime, all the time, constantly. Although the problem is I would probably just sit there and watch it nonstop and never live my own life, so that'd be a bad thing.
Did you read the Magic Treehouse books growing up? That was like the first series of books I could read.
Yes, exactly.
Basically, the premise of those books.
That Egypt one.
They change things, I think. I don't want to change
things, though. You're right.
Yeah.
Angela?
I would be able to shape shift into any animal. So then I get like all the superpowers because I could fly, because I could shape shift into animals. I could breathe underwater because I could shape shift into a whale or something. That would be fun.
Ooh, you would have all the powers. You're smart.
So here's the thing, Angela.
Oh no.
We have the power of telepathy because that was mine exactly.
Oh my god, I've been saying that for years and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy.
So I'm with you, and I'm also team, I should have thought the power of healing, because now I feel better.
Oh my god, I'm so happy that I found somebody else who understands.
Yeah, but as soon as you started describing it, I was like,
that's me. I think you guys would like Outlander.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
It's like a TV show where she time travels, but I guess she kind of like changes things.
Yeah.
It started.
So
cool.
She like,
the whole
time
I was thinking of it. I was thinking of 11/22/63 by Stephen King.
Oh,
but
I did that.
I think that he changes stuff in that one, right?
He does. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, we don't want to change things. We just want to observe.
Okay, I have to know, like, what time period would you guys want to go to?
All of it.
Yeah.
Everything.
All of it.
Egypt mostly for me, but everything.
Yeah, I don't know if there's I don't know. Oh my gosh, I'd have to think about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to see everything too, but specifically a lot of American history as well, because a lot of it's kind of a little bit murky. So
I know.
I think all countries' history is a little bit murky.
That's true.
My favorite is probably ancient Egypt, but like the same thing, like I'd want to see everything, just especially when like there's mystery surrounding it, like Marilyn Monroe's death, things like that, like what actually happened. You know?
But like once you find out this information, you have to share it.
I know, that's what I was gonna say.
Like what if Egypt is like
not being selfish?
What if it's aliens? I want to know, Angela, Yesenia. I want to know those things. Was it aliens? Like, what happened to Marilyn Monroe?
It's been proven it was not aliens. It was not
What?
aliens. They made the pyramids themselves. That's been proven.
Can I request things?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Like, I need to know.
But if I can request healing from you, that's the. I get to request your superpower in return, then.
Yeah.
We could all like form like a superpower group.
Charles Xavier School, yeah.
You guys should go back in time and just shake the hand of whoever it is who invented cheese curds.
They can't change things.
Monsieur Poutine.
I was wondering how I was going to work cheese curds into this live show, so I'm glad that I got to do it.
Should we pick a food to represent this book? Haven't we done that so far for all the books?
Shoot.
Let's do it. I feel like it needs to be blue, but
wasn't there? What did Lucy like to bake? Or eat or something? Wasn't there some like sticky buns or something?
Sticky buns at one point.
Oh, sticky buns, yeah.
But her pies. Oh, I love pie, and she kept talking about her pies. I was like, lot. You're killing me.
What about? Okay, wait. Is a sticky bun like a cinnamon roll?
Yeah, more or less. I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. So we have sticky buns or pies.
Let's go for pies.
We have to pick a flavor pie. I feel like it should be blueberry because cerulean.
It's blueberry. Yeah.
A cerulean berry pie.
I have an irrational fear of blueberries, but it's fine.
Why?
I can't take blueberries then.
They just really freak me out. I don't know what it is.
Oh no!
But no, it's okay. Blueberry is definitely fitting for this one.
Okay.
We can do blackberries. They're kind of blue too.
That's true.
So don't go back
this
in
is
time
very
when they first found blueberries. Don't go check that out.
Why?
Because she said she wants to go back in time. I said, don't go back in time to when they first found blueberries. Then
that would be a bad moment. Okay, this is like so off topic. So I'll say this, and then we'll do the thing where we start to round it up a little bit. So speaking of fruit, today I got home and a watermelon exploded in my kitchen. Like when I got home, it exploded.
Oh,
Was it just sitting in your
how
house?
can it happen?
Yes, it was just sitting on my counter, and I came back, and it had like exploded, and my whole kitchen smelled like rotten watermelon, and there was this gigantic puddle. It went behind the oven. I had to move the oven to clean it.
Maybe you did it. Maybe
was
that's
heat? Was it in the sun or something?
No, it wasn't in the sun.
Oh, weird.
That is strange.
I think have you been stressed lately?
What?
Have you been stressed lately? Because maybe that was your superpower and you did it yourself.
Maybe. I can explode
go back
water.
in time and check out what happened.
Please.
No, it's sending it too. We'll tag team.
Yeah, someone figure this out because it was a mess. I was almost late, like getting things ready because I was like trying to deal with the exploded watermelon.
That's so
I had no
disappointing
idea
because you
that could
also didn't get to
happen.
eat the watermelon. I mean, that would have been the most upsetting thing for me.
It was so sad. Yeah, and the smell. I'm almost thinking I'll never be able to eat watermelon again.
Oh no!
Okay, Kristen, kind of related. I've been thinking about this for weeks, but your tweet, I saw a tweet, and you said that you were cut by a grape.
Yes.
Elaborate, please. How does this happen?
Okay. I got like a big cut on my finger from a grape. I had bought these grapes that had seeds in them on accident. I didn't even know that grapes had seeds on them in the inside somehow. And so I was like splitting them by hand. And once I got done, I saw that one of my fingers, it was my index finger, had a cut on it. And I think it was the peel of the grape, or it could have been I scratched a seed inside of the grape, maybe sliced open my finger.
You and fruit don't get along.
Yeah,
I know.
literally. Oh my gosh, that's so unfortunate. Were they good?
Yeah, they were really good. Yeah, they
It
were
was their revenge.
like, how
You
dare
shall
you?
not eat me.
Well, I had the last word there in my stomach.
I think they're out of season now, but if you guys haven't tried them, cotton candy grapes are the best.
So good.
Yes.
Oh,
Those are amazing. Oh, okay. Sorry. I have gotten behind on some comments really quick. So let's look at those. Hi. So this Kawiria, so good to see you too. And who knew grapes could be so deadly? Right? Who knew?
We are learning things today.
Okay, so since we're going on nearly an hour, I know we all have things that we probably need to get done. So I'll just, we'll say maybe our favorite part of the book, our least favorite part of the book, and then say if it's a top shelf read. And then we can end it there. So does anyone have a favorite part of the book that they want to talk about? Something that really stuck out to them?
I just like the whimsy.
Mhm.
That's all I'm gonna say for that.
What was it, Laura?
The whimsy, like the
yeah.
quirky strangeness of everything.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I talked over someone. I think it was Sarah.
No problem. My favorite thing, and actually Bridge Books mentioned this, but that poem about paper, do you remember?
Yes.
That one, that really stuck out to me. I think that it really just sort of like summarized like beautifully like a big major underlying theme of the book. Yeah.
I agree.
I cried. I can't even say it out loud. I'll start crying. But it was a very beautifully written, like touching poem. Yeah.
And then when he recited it back, when Linus recited it back at the end.
I know.
Crying like puddles. It was so cute.
I had a favorite funny part instead of crying.
Oh, yes.
My favorite funny part was like when he opens up Lucy's file. He's like, "Oh, Lucy, that's an interesting name for a boy." And then it's like, "Father, the devil, species of magical youth, Antichrist, Linus Baker fainted dead away." Like that part made me laugh really.
Yeah.
A heartwarming
Lucy
part.
short for Lucifer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The audiobook was Lucy in the Record Store. I thought that was just like a really funny addition, and it was really cute. And I definitely said "aw" a bunch of times. It was righteous.
Righteous.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part is like the children. I guess the innocence of the children and their relationships together are so warm and sweet.
Stephanie?
Honestly, I just kind of like how much Calliope loves Sal. I don't know why, but that was just one of my favorite things in the whole book. I thought it was so sweet and adorable, and Sal's like never been just loved by anyone more than anyone else. And this
Yeah,
is obsessed with him.
That was so sweet. Oh. Okay, so I was gonna ask if anyone has a least favorite part. This might be like difficult, but is there something that you really didn't like?
This is where I show my hand
Oh.
and be a bit of a Grinch. I didn't like the book.
Oh.
Okay, like all the things I liked about it, but I liked the whimsical characters. I thought it was so super cute, but it was just it was too. Every character had some sort of like heavy-handed, like wise remark, and it was just too sugary sweet for me. And I was listening to the audiobook, and every now and then I'd be like, if they give me one more piece of wisdom about how I should love my neighbor or like how people are
like
different on the inside, I'm just gonna scream. I'm a Grinch, but yeah, it just, oh my god, it was too much. Yeah.
Oh, no.
There's the tea.
I kept that under my hat well, didn't I?
Yes.
No.
I really did.
Great acting. I truly was not expecting you to say that. I would have shown my cards way earlier.
Just focus on the positives.
Okay, so Laura, here's the thing. When it got to the middle of the book, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
What?
I actually didn't like the middle of the book. I didn't. I felt like they were just so like Laura said, that there was just these like moral sort of themes that just felt like being like fed to me over and over again. And I felt like a lot of the middle of the book felt like filler. Like it wasn't even that interesting to read. But maybe where I differ from Laura is that like I thought the beginning was like amazing, and I thought the end was amazing, but the middle part, like the middle like 2/3, I did not enjoy that much.
There was one part where there was no tension or conflict or anything. He was just living happily on the island with the quirky children, which I mean, like, somewhat nice to read about, but there was nothing like at stake, or there was nothing like.
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
The fact that the orphanage could potentially be shut down, and it was just, and yeah.
It just felt very like slice of life for a long time.
And I just, it's okay, some like words of wisdom when they come sort of from one character, but it was coming from everyone. It was like, Linus would say these, oh, like sometimes you don't notice that something's missing from your letter. I don't know. I don't want to be mean either. But like Linus would say something, then Arthur was always saying things, and the kids would say something, and then they went to the mainland, and that the mayor of the town was giving all these pieces of wisdom, and it was just too much. There was nowhere you were safe from it. Like all of the characters were delivering these lines. So.
And I did feel like quite a bit was redundant as well. They would reuse lines, like word for word, like several times throughout the book. And I was like, okay, I think we've got this point. Like, let's move on. But for me, it was just like the middle.
Yeah, and that's where it felt very much like a children's book, because I thought, like, well, maybe if I was younger, I would buy into this a little bit more. But it felt very much like these mantras that they just kept repeating at you. So anyway,
it's so funny. Yeah, is it our turn now? We're gonna come in and defend it. I'll say something first. I kind of see what you're saying for some of that. I think because I really loved every single character so much that in the middle, when they were just having like their everyday experiences kind of growing together and we were watching Linus change, like I loved that because I loved the characters and like I just wanted to see them interact more and do things. And so for me, that made the middle just as exciting as the beginning and ending. And then I guess maybe I'm just a person who likes heavy-handed moral lessons because like whenever they happen, now that you mention it, I noticed them. Like I realized they were there, but when I was reading it, I was just like, oh, what a sweet thing to say. Or that was so cute, that thing that they just said. That's so true. Like it didn't bother me at all. It kind of just like made me feel like warm and happy. But then again, I am basically 12 years old, so.
I was like, cringe. But I don't necessarily think that Linus even changed that much throughout the book. Like, I felt like as soon as he got to the island, he was just the good guy, you know? And there was no sort of, like, struggle between, oh, shit, I've followed these rules my whole life. Like, there's no, like, internal struggle about you know what he should do. It just seemed very clear from the beginning that he should devote himself to these kids. And yeah, anyway, I've said enough.
Fair points. Anyone else want to say something in defense of the book?
In defense, no.
Oh no!
I'll go in defense. At least I'm not defending it because I understand what you're saying. For me, it was just like, okay, highlighting time because I like to highlight all those words of wisdom. But I do know what you're saying. It was very heavy-handed. It wasn't really like subtle. It was like, here's your lesson. For me, I just kind of, from the children, I took that as that's what Arthur taught them. So they were like mimicking back important lessons that Arthur taught him. And so that's why it didn't feel weird to me. I was a little surprised at how some of the townspeople were super instantly like accepting. Of course, there's some that weren't, but yeah, a lot of them were pretty like, oh, this is, of course, you're a kid. Come on. But I think that I do think that, though, again, it was more like some people don't get things subtly. I feel like, as I said earlier, I don't mean to repeat myself, but like I feel like if you can relate to the children or even Linus and Arthur, anyone like that, you'll take that sweet side of it and you'll take those lessons. But if you can't and you might have issues with things like that and acceptance, I feel like he's kind of whacking you over the head with it. And I sometimes think people need that because they don't easily change. So that's my defense.
One thing, though, with the townspeople, like I agree very much. Sorry. I just, I can't stop weighing in. But with the townspeople, it was like they had these group of protesters. And they built it up to be this big climax where they were going to confront these protesters who were against the magical youth. And then they get there and there's only like 12 of them. And then at the end they say, oh, and they were all old and the young people are coming up and they're going to die out anyway. So it's like there's no antagonist. It was sort of let's confront these like unaccepting people, and then there were no unaccepting people. Like they found out in the end that the world is good, and I don't know. I don't think that was realistic.
You're right.
That's how I felt with it when they were confronting the protesters. I feel like the protesters just like didn't have the guts to stick it out when their mayor was telling them to knock it off because she had more power than them, and they were kind of cowards to begin with. So that's how I felt about it, is that they were just kind of cowardly people. And when someone stands up to them that has more power and can actually really affect their lives, they back down because they didn't want that to happen to them. They would rather just kind of be bigoted in their heads and like in the background than actually stand up and do something about it. So that was my feeling on it.
Yeah. It was very mob mentality with them the entire time. But I guess I'll rapid fire my two thoughts. So I have them on both ends of the spectrum. The first is I was really nervous. The first half of the book did not grip me at all. And I think that had this not been a top shelf pick, it could have been a DNF for me just because it wasn't gripping me the way that I wanted it to. But then I also, like Angela said, I'm not going to like repeat everything because she said it perfectly, but I do agree that people don't get subtlety. So I think that's why I didn't mind like the very boom in your face lessons, just because I'm like, okay, these are important lessons that to be an empathetic person, you kind of need to know, So I didn't mind that aspect of it, but it did feel a little heavy-handed at times. That's for sure.
Okay, so I feel like we already know the answers that we're about to discuss, but we end this the same way we do with all of our top shelf discussions by asking the question, is this a top shelf read? So I'll go ahead and say my opinion, which is quite obvious, I'm certain, is the fact that this is a top shelf read for me, even though there may be some heavy-handedness and not a lot of realistic conflict. When I go into a story, I really like a wonderful, beautiful escape. And that's what this book was. It was a beautiful, magical world of peace, and for the most part calm, and about how love and acceptance can just make the world better. And for me, that was like everything I wanted. And because of the children too, and all of their quirks, this book was like an absolute 5-star read. Sarah?
So it's difficult for me to like give it a rating because I have so many like conflicting thoughts about it. Like I feel like for me personally, like I might not want to reread it. Anything that I say is top shelf, I would have to like want to reread. But this is a book for me that I would recommend to like so many people. It's a book that like I would want, like if I had children, I would want them to read it. Like I would want other people in my family to read it. I would say that I would still give it like a pretty high like rating. Like I would say maybe like 4 or like maybe even a little bit less than that. But because I love the characters. I do love how it was written. Loved Calliope. So and I think that it's worth reading.
So not a top shelf read.
I suppose not.
Okay, fair enough. Stephanie?
It's pretty high there, though.
Yeah, like a mid shelf read.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like I'm fairly similar to Sarah on this, where I wouldn't put it in my book like my favorites, but I thought it was amazing. I thought it was great. I loved the whimsy, the characters, and the lessons it taught. And I feel like going into it, like not I felt like after I got into it a little bit, I couldn't judge it like I would an adult book. And I kind of just was like, okay, it's its own little thing, maybe middle grade, maybe adult. And I felt like that helped me to judge it a little bit better, because if I was like, oh, this is an adult book, it might not have been as much, but I was like, I don't know. I feel like if I thought of it more of like a middle grade adult hybrid, I liked it a lot more. But I loved it, and I think probably 4 stars, but maybe not quite to the top shelf level.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I just went into this thinking that everyone had to have thought that this was top shelf. So that's so funny to me. Okay, sorry.
It is a top shelf read for me, because like I'm not saying that it's perfect. Same thing. Like there's very few books that are perfect, but it was something that, I mean, we haven't said it as much, but the comedy too, it was so great, and I just loved that. And they weren't just like stereotypical. Like when I was thinking superpowers, I was thinking like magical powers. I wasn't thinking gnomes and the Antichrist and like a blob guy. Like it was and then like it was such unique characters. And like I grew up on the X-Men TV show and the original X-Men movies, and I love them. And this was just like so similar to that and it had good lessons, so I loved that.
Yay, the two of us. Well, I wonder what Laura thinks.
I maybe there are people that don't get subtleties, and maybe they need heavy-handedness, but I get subtleties, and that's what I like in my books. So, no, it's not a top shelf read for me.
Oh. Okay.
What is your star rating?
Yeah, I'm curious.
A solid 2. I don't know, but it was also 3. I don't know. It was also, it was like, I completely agree with Angela when she said it was funny. Like, it was so funny. And the characters, like just some of the term extremely upper management was hilarious to me. I'm like, that's so funny. That is what they're called. And
doesn't that remind me of like 90s TV shows like Rocko's Modern Life and stuff like that? Like extremely upper management, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And just it was just really, whimsical and funny. What the kids' powers were, and that there was a kid that turned into a Pomeranian and could turn that so funny. So things like that. I mean, like, I don't regret reading it or anything. It's just definitely not a top shelf read for me.
Fair enough.
Okay, so this is my third 5-star book with you guys, so I'm super excited. I know that I said the first half was slow, and it was, but after completing the whole thing, I can now understand and kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I can appreciate why it was so slow to get us to where we got to at the end of the book. I really enjoyed it. I know we've all talked about how heavy-handed it was and things like that, but it really put a smile on my face, taught some valuable lessons, and I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to pick up his other work. Oh, and we didn't talk about this either. I love all of the LGBT rep in this as well. We never talked about that, but that was a great addition to it as well, because that was something I didn't know going into it.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Because it wasn't really the focus of the book. It was just like it's a normal part of life that's in there. So that was nice.
And bellhop appreciation.
Yeah, that was another funny part.
I like that.
Okay, well, I think that concludes the 4th meeting of the Top Shelf Society, in which we are basically a house divided, with me, Angela, and Yesenia rating it a top shelf read. And, oh wait, Stephanie, did you? I can't remember now. Oh no, you said not quite top shelf.
Yeah, okay.
Not quite.
And Sarah, Stephanie, and Laura kind of saying it wasn't. So I want to quickly tell everyone who is watching and who might watch this later that the next book we're going to be reading, you voted on, and that was Fahrenheit 451. And we're going to be having the live show for that on Saturday, September the 26th at 8 p.m. So that's 3 hours later than we have been doing live shows previously. So we're going to be more active on Goodreads this month than we were last month. Make sure that you continue to check us out over there and do some discussions. Also, hopefully we'll be more active on Instagram as well. We'll see about that. Sarah has been doing an amazing job with our Instagram lately. Thank you so much, Sarah.
I'm addicted. I have issues.
She's so good at it. It's
literally compulsive.
But yeah, that basically wraps it up. That was our blueberry pie book, The House in the Cerulean Sea. So we'll see you guys next month. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.